Now, today's small detail project that we're trying to work on the MT09, I made the bolts disappear in the intake scoops. That was very successful. Well, I wanted to make these two bolts that are right under the seat disappear. And I thought originally of making some covers and cutting out some patterns and whatever. But in the end, the project evolved. And it evolved in a way, on a freezing cold day, I was out there freezing and trying to come up with something better, something different. I tried replacing different pieces under the seat, making up little templates, making patterns. But in the end, I wound up going to a hardware store right in town, Brothers Hardware. And I won't let the cat out of the bag, but I was pretty happy at the end of the day that I had made those bolts disappear. Today's project, one more little detailed job I wanted to take care of on the MT09. There's several other ones. This is one that's going to be a little, I haven't really figured out exactly what I want to do yet. I'm going to make some patterns and look at some material choices. It'll be an interesting day. Now, most of what we've done to the MT09 is paint flat black parts and make parts that obscure some of the bolts and things that I feel like the bike is a little unfinished when you buy it. And I think that was a nice upgrade. We've gotten rid of the bolts in the scoops, got a windshield with some special bracketing that laid it down to what I think is the correct side. But there's one little detail I've kind of left to the very end here. I wanted to make some kind of a little cover in here. I don't want to see these bolts. And I just would like to make that have a little more of a finished look if I can possibly do it. Well, today we got our Cheerios boxes and we're going to give it a try. Now, all of these little projects, they always seem to start with a Cheerios box somehow. I don't know how that happens. But anyway, I was trying to look and see what pretty much that shape of that cover would be if it's a cover, but I don't know if it's going to be a cover. Because it's going to stick out. See what happens, these bolts do stick out quite a bit. So I don't know if that's even going to be a practical way to do this. But what I thought I'd do is start with, that's the shape. It's going to go under the seat. And just get some idea of what this is going to look like, or abandon this. And another thought I had was I can actually attach a piece to the seat that has seating material on it. That might be a choice. But see, the problem is they stick out. And that's what this piece here is supposed to do. So, but again, this is the kind of thing, it's an invent it as you go along project. So we've got to start somewhere. I'm going to start cutting. I call these paper dolls. Sooner or later I'll get this to where I fine tune it and I can look at what material I want to use. So this project in particular evolved in a way that I didn't see it coming. I had thought about this for a while, but I never took into account how far out those bolts stick. And no matter what shape I made the pattern or how I moved it around or left parts out, it just was going to be impossible to do anything with those bolts in place. Now, making a curved piece would have been fine. I can make that out of carbon fiber. But I still, with the bolts in the way, it would have been awkward and something that just didn't look like it belonged there. It would have looked worse than if you just leave it alone. But I had other ways of getting rid of those bolts, and I didn't see this really coming. Well, after making up so many patterns, I ran out of Cheerios boxes, but here's what I came to the conclusion of, and it's after having a seat on and off, there's really no realistic way because of the curve of this part, and this piece sticks out. So what I decided to try to do is modify it, try to make up a cover just to cover the bolts. And it would not cover that, it would just be, I don't know yet. Again, these projects evolve, and you cut up a lot of Cheerios boxes, that's for sure. But anyway, I just think covering up those bolts would be worth it if we could. So what's evolved is I thought maybe I could make a piece that would just go up around here too. Again, I have some thin aluminum. The aluminum would be the piece. First I have to make, of course, a Cheerios box, but I'm out of Cheerios boxes. I need a pattern. These kind of projects evolve and you never know where they're going, and sometimes they don't go anywhere and you just have to jump ship. This might be one of those cases. I cut a lot of patterns that I thought. I took the seat on and off, even with the seat on, with the seat off. I was trying to make patterns. There just was no, it's like a musical chairs where you have too many people, and it just wasn't, I wasn't happy with any of the results. So I gave it one last hurrah with this little bolt cover, thinking I could make that part out of carbon fiber or whatever. But no matter how I traced it and no matter how I worked with it, and it didn't float my boat at all, and so I just have to move on. Oh, even that cover there is not going to work the way I want, because what's going to happen, see this piece, it sticks out, and it's going to be in your way. Now, I assume maybe I'm going to just have to live with this, and maybe that's the lesson of the day, because these parts actually stick out too much. And I thought of another thing I could do. I could just eliminate the bolts here and somehow, I don't know, thread it from the bottom. Yeah, that might not be the project of the day. Sometimes you just gotta jump ship. I guess this is a jump ship day. So after giving up on all the other things here, I'm ready to throw the towel in. I thought, well, maybe I could countersink these bolts and get different kind of bolts that don't bulge up, and we have a real good hardware store right in town. I took one bolt out. I'm gonna go over there and see, maybe that'll be an improvement. There's really no way. It's a physics thing. There's too many things sticking out, and one of the things about this bike, this is the thing that protects the frame, that your knee is going to rub on this. So if you make anything that sticks out here, and maybe that's why Yamaha didn't do it. Maybe I'm outsmarting myself here. And by looking at the bolts I have and all the bolts I have in stock, I don't have, see, this is what I should really have. These are 1/4 though, is something that doesn't have the top sticking out. So I think I'm going to have to take a trip right in town to Brothers Hardware and see what they have. Now I've got plenty of these bolts that have the other head, except they're all 1/4 American, and I'm not going to retap anything. But we do have, and I thought I'd have something. But you know what? Sometimes I've given up on the pattern, and maybe I can just make the bolts a little less obvious, I guess is the right word. We'll go see what they have in Brothers Hardware. Now this hardware store in town, Brothers Hardware, has an incredible amount of screws, especially metric, and it's brutally cold out here right now. I'm glad I'm working in the garage with that heater. And sometimes a project like this takes on a life of its own. It changes as it evolves. In this case, I think maybe just replacing those button head screws would be an upgrade. And if not, it's not gonna be a big deal, because I realize that the physics involved here, I'm limited, very limited to what I can do to block off that little spot under the seat. But I didn't know that until I started fitting pieces, but that's the challenge of doing this kind of work. So this is the place I go to, Brothers Hardware, right by the train station in Rutherford. And boy, they have every bolt in the world in this store. It's an unbelievable selection of bolts. Let's see if they have what we want. Now, just for reference, this is how many bolts they have. This is, I think they have more than Bolt Depot here. I'm going to see what we can find. It's quite a store, right in Rutherford by the train station. So it looks like they have exactly what I want in every length possible, and that'll be the first choice. That'll get rid of the big button on the head. So how cool is this? They even have these in Allen, recessed Allen, the exact length in metric or in chrome. Can't believe it. Can't believe they have exactly what I want. Unbelievable. Now, my drain plug for the Suzuki needs an O-ring, and it's not available from Partzilla. They have it here. So I'm going to pick up the O-ring, get the screws, get some extras. Pretty cool. That hardware store is just an amazing throwback in time to when people knew what they were doing, and that's an amazing thing. Anyway, even if the only thing we can do is replace the screws with something more attractive, and I've gone out of my way to put the black screws, well, you know what? They had them not only in chrome, but in black. I mean, you just can't get any better than that. Amazing. So I'm not sure. I might have to countersink these a little bit, but it's going to get rid of one of the things I think is just, those screws always annoyed me. Even if I have to look at the screws, and these have the black oxide finish on them. Boy, what a resource that Brothers Hardware is. Unbelievable. and so convenient. So it looks like our project, now what's happened is in the front, in all of these things that I did with the windshield, I wanted the black screws. I ordered black screws, but I never ordered these. So I have plenty of these button head guys, but now to me, once I countersink that and it sits down in there, that'll look a lot more attractive than this, and it will not. Well, you never know where a project like this is going to go. That's the challenge of doing this kind of work. If you knew ahead of time, or what always is, if you buy a part off the internet that you know fits, somebody engineered, like the graves in the back, the tail tidy. Yeah, they've engineered it, they check it, everything. But when you got to do a part freelance like this, and sometime in the middle of the project, you just have to throw the towel in. Now what I want is those screws to be flush. I want to countersink them right in. And to me, this is just like this. Even if they just did this from the factory instead of this, it would have been, I think it would have been a lot nicer. But hey, I don't work for Yamaha, and you know what? They don't pay me to design bikes for them either. And I'm always convinced it's always the little details that make a bike just special or different or nice or whatever. You never have too many little details. Oh my God, that looks so nice. So much more like it's a finished motorcycle now. So I'm just going to do the other ones, and then maybe even have some time for a photo shoot today. It's nice and sunny out, but it's 25 degrees. So a little time for a before and after. Before, after, and they don't stick up and rub on your knee or anything now. That's a nice upgrade. I have no idea why Yamaha wouldn't do that. Well, that isn't exactly what I started out today to do, but it evolved into something, and I think that's definitely better. It's not perfect. I wish I could come up with something. Maybe I can in the future. Now that those bolts aren't there, I may try to come up with some kind of little part or thing. But what makes this bike really nice to me, and it's my ergonomics, the seat is thin. When you can really get your knee down, and the seat shape. And I know what Yamaha had in mind. That was part of the attractiveness of the bike. Now, if you put one of these custom seats or a wider seat, yeah, you could make that change. But you know what, for right now, I started out the day wanting to make a cover, and I guess that's the lesson of all videos. Sometimes you got to just improvise. That, to me, is an improvement. Now, not to everybody. I'm very fussy. I ordered a whole slew of bolts because I didn't want to have chrome bolts on the windshield. I wanted black bolts in there so they disappear. Well, when you're fussy, I guess. I have these covers that cover the frame. Okay, getting those chips on my way. Little covers that cover the bolts. But the whole idea is it just cleans the bike up. That's the whole idea. Makes it look finished. So this day ends, and I guess that is the improvement I wanted. I didn't want to see the bolts. I just didn't have it planned that way. But all the little bolts on this project, they have been something I've been, and making bolts disappear. And it doesn't mean I won't figure something out in the future, but right now, that's going to have to do it. But you know what I can see already? Maybe I can put in here, I see that little piece. Put a little piece of carbon fiber in there in the future. Maybe that'll look cool. I don't know. It's all about the little details, and there's 100 little details on this bike, from the screening being a different color, the tail tidy, polishing the exhaust, all the little covers we made from carbon fiber, all the paintwork, the custom windshield, and the big one, the silver wheels. And we're not done yet, but I do want to get some photos. The wind is howling and it's really cold, so this will be a short photo shoot. So the way the day played out, I did get some photos shot, but it was brutally cold out there. I was really, really cold, and I was just happy to get the photos, go downstairs, look at them, try to plan out the next move on our priority list here, how I wanted to do it. And this little project is not over yet. I will figure out some way of disguising those bolts. I know I have some other choices that are a little more radical, but Getting those big button head screws really bothered me. I didn't like the way they looked at all. Now, some people it wouldn't bother at all. Some people, everybody's different. I just happen to be very fussy about how something looks, if it looks like it's appropriate to be there or if they just put it there as an afterthought. Now, every step of the way, I've tried to think the project out. I've made priority lists, looked at the photos from the day that just had finished, and then try to figure out what I want to do on the next work session. And so far, that has worked out pretty well for me. And I've been having fun. Actually, I've been cold and having fun today. But every little step, including the little things we did the bar ends and all these little covers and hatches and things. And you don't notice, the point is, if you do one thing like that, you almost don't notice it. You do 2, 3, and all of a sudden, there's an amount you do, and all of a sudden, it's a different motorcycle. It somehow is unique. Somehow, the little screens in the back, I didn't think that would make a big difference. Whenever I look at the bike from the back, I see it right away. Now, some people don't see it, and some people don't care, and I understand that perfectly. And some people, they enjoy different motorcycles, dirt bikes, drag bikes, whatever. But this is truly a fun street bike, and that's it. It doesn't pretend to be a sport bike. It doesn't pretend to be a Goldwing. It is the kind of bike you get on, you turn the key, you go for a ride, and you're having fun with a smile on your face the whole time, and you don't come home with a headache or a backache. Now, in the case of that seat, Yamaha had figured that out, I think, better than most, except for those bolts. That seat being thin in the front, and you look at it, it looks very thin until you sit on it and you realize, wow, this is really a good seat. And I'm always happy when I can make a little change to the motorcycle, something unique, something custom, like the bar ends, like those bolts. Those bolts, the more I looked at them, the more I thought that was a bigger change than I thought it would be. And you know what? Now that they're flat like that, it'll open up the door to more possibilities of hiding them. And I'll think about in the future some little carbon fiber. Actually, I probably would be able to cover them up now. But it evolved. The whole thing is the project right from the very get-go. Today, right after I had that cup of coffee, I thought one thing was going to happen. Something different happened. It evolved. It didn't exactly turn out the way I wanted, but I'm still happy at the end of the day. Like the silver wheels. I put in 16 full work days, and the bolts missing in the scoops, to me that's a major change. Other people, maybe not so much, but this really was a good day. So we did get a couple of photos, and this was a project that took on a life of its own, had a few changes along the way, and that's what typically happens, but I already have an idea. I already am thinking about it. Now that I don't have to deal with those 2 bolts, and those 2 bolts really annoyed me. I don't know why. It was just like a beautiful woman with the 2 pimples on her nose. I don't know. And my MT09, I'm trying to make this as beautiful as I can, and I don't know if I'm succeeding. It's up to you, and it's up to the eye of the beholder. But anyway, this has been a long day. I'm ready to go get some coffee and look at the video. So now I can move on to the next part of this project, and like I said, I have a priority list, and it changes pretty much every day, and certainly changes every time I do a photo shoot like today. But it's been a really fun bike to work on. It's an easy bike to work on. And all of the things that I've done to it, none of them require a big expenditure of money. A lot of them are labor intensive, time intensive. And in the end, I hope that the bike is unique in some way, that you will not go somewhere and see the exact same thing done. But to me, it's all a personal thing anyway. And all of the beauty and all of these appearance things are in the eye of the beholder. And no matter what, even if you left the bike totally stock, it's a really fun bike. It is really, until you've ridden one and got 1,000 miles on it, you really can't explain to people how much fun it is. It really is a lot of fun. we post every day. Thanks for watching.